is the best thing about childhood? About playing and about listening lots and lots of stories. There is no child in this world who does not like to listen to a story. We all have grown up listening and enjoying to a variety of stories. We have heard fairy tales, we have heard stories of ghosts, we have stories of kings and queens, and there are stories in which young children are shown. There are some children who want to listen to a story when they are eating their lunch or dinner. And there are some children who won't go to sleep until they have heard their favorite story. Sometimes children want us to tell one story again and again and again. And sometimes they want us to tell a different story every time. And this shows that listening to a story is one of the favorite activities of early childhood. As parents and teachers of young children, we have to learn the art of telling a story. Because when a story is told with expressions and with lots of skills, the children remember the story and they enjoy it. But to tell a story, it requires a set of skills. And today we are going to talk about the skills which are required for effective storytelling. So what is the first step of telling a story in an interesting manner? Firstly, we all have to learn to enjoy the stories ourselves. We can tell the stories effectively only when we have enjoyed them. So, start with a story that you have enjoyed the best as a child or as a teacher, and that will be a good starting point for all of you. So when we have enjoyed the story, now it's our turn to let somebody enjoy the story that we know. So what do we have to do? The first step is to make the story into very short, simple sentences. If we make big sentences, it confuses the listener and the children do not derive meaning out of it. So the first step is to make the story very, very simple. There should not be many ands and buts and whereas which make the sentences longer and longer. So, whenever you choose a story, you have to see to it that the language is simple and the sentences are short. Now, we have a story with simple short sentences. Now we have to put some dialogues into it to make it more interactive. Children enjoy dialogues because that is the way they look at all the people around. And they know that things have to be said to each other. And that is why dialogues are very, very important in a story. So, for example, if a character meets the other character and says something, it is our opportunity to convert that text into a dialogue and present it in front of the children. Just as, suppose a mouse meets the crow and asks for water, is your sentence, then our dialogue should be, so the mouse came and he asked, Mr. Crow, do you have some water? That means it gives a scope to the children to understand that things have to be said or asked or requested in the story. So what else do we require to tell a good story? When we are telling a story, we have to describe many things. We have to describe people like characters and we have to describe places or objects, and that is an important thing because this description gives a lot of vocabulary to children, and listening to stories is a language building activity. This has to be kept in mind, and as we are describing things, children are learning adjectives, children are learning adverbs, and there is no need to introduce them formally later on. So, for example, if you are talking about a garden, the story could be just simply say that there was a big garden. You can go on elaborating like, there was a big garden and it has a huge gate. And if you open that gate, you see there are so many tall trees. And the grass was so green, lush green. And there were decorative benches in the garden. The swings were there, the slides were there, and you can go on and on and on to describe the story. Of course, you have to keep in mind the attention span of the children, but it is important to describe the event, the person or the place in a story. That gives a good background for children to visualize what is happening in the story. When we are using these dialogues in the story, the children are actually imagining that the crow has come or the mouse has come and is requesting water to the crow. So at that time, the child's imagination is increasing, as well as the child is developing his language. And after the dialogues, we have to also put another interesting element into the storytelling, which is voice modulation. When we are talking about the crow, or for example the crow is talking to the mouse, we have to use the voice of a crow. For example, the crow said,
"No, Mr. Mouse, I don't have water. Go somewhere else and find out."
When you change the way you talk, the child associates that with the character. Children have heard different voices, children have seen different personalities, and if you put this element into your storytelling, that is the enjoyment for children. Along with voice modulation comes the tone in which we talk. Now, if the mouse is scared to ask water to the lion, he's naturally going to use a very low tone. That means we have to say that, "Oh Mr. Lion, do you have some water?" That tone conveys the emotion, the tone conveys the state of mind, and that is why low tones, high tones have to be used in the storytelling. Suppose if the lion is talking to the mouse, he has to be a graceful and an authoritative person. So the lion has to say, "Yes, Mr. Mouse, why have you come to us? Do you need something?" So the personality of the character is displayed by the tone in which the character is speaking. A good storyteller uses the whole body to tell the story effectively. The facial expressions, the hand gestures, movements, and the whole body movement conveys the entire essence of any scene to the children. So, if you want to tell good stories, you have to practice in front of the mirror. So, you will also understand which expressions are coming onto your face or how your hands are conveying the message to the children. And this is very, very important, because this is the drama element the children are learning from us. And if you are using the whole body to tell the story, the children are also learning the art of expressions. If you tell a story with an iron face that there was a man he lived in a village, he had 4 children, they used to fight with each other. Your hands are locked, your face is locked, and the children are also learning that when you have to say something, you have to be still. That is not important. When you use your whole body, the children also learn that if they have to communicate effectively, they also have to use their body effectively. Suppose you want to show the expression of curiosity on your face. You will have to raise your eyebrows, widen your eyes, and you have to say, "Oh my God, is it true? The sky is falling." That means when you are doing all this, the children are also understanding that what happens to our face or our body when we are experiencing something. And telling a good story is also about experiencing it. Now that we've learned so much, now it's time to use our own special tadka or our own special flavor to the story. Adding your own element in terms of jingles, in terms of chants, in terms of special words or expressions, something that the children have really liked these days, gives an element of surprise to the children, and it is appreciated so much. Because when we are happy or when we are experiencing something, we just don't only speak words, we sometimes sing, we sometimes chant something, or we sometimes use an expression, and that is very important while telling a story. For example, if you take the example of the gingerbread man story, that gingerbread man has to run from the grandparents. So in that, if you give a jingle to the gingerbread man, it might say, run, run, run as fast as you can. You can't catch me. I am a gingerbread man. So, when you use this chant again and again, children also start participating in the story because it comes repetitively and they enjoy these chants. This gives a source of creativity to children, that language can be used in different forms and simple jingles can be incorporated in stories. So now we've learned so many skills about how to tell the story effectively. But if we still want to enhance the story, we might think of using some aids to tell the story. What are these aids? These can be pictures, these can be flashcards, these can be stick puppets, glove puppets, some real objects, or anything that you can use as the object of storytelling. These are important because they also enhance children's imagination and help children to understand some finer details of the story. Sometimes a simple picture explains the whole lot of things together, and that is why to add to the quality of your storytelling, you can use certain storytelling techniques. Storytelling is important for entertaining young children, but it also has certain advantages. Now let's see how a story helps a child to develop his personality. First and foremost, the child learns language through listening to stories, because listening to the fluency of the story, listening to dialogues, listening to various tenses, listening to adjectives, listening to expressions adds to the vocabulary and the flavor in which the dialogues are done. And that is why language development is done through storytelling. Secondly, the child becomes more confident about his verbal expressions. Because he has heard so many words and he knows their contexts, he starts using those words in his daily life. And that gives him confidence in talking to other people. The dialogues in the stories are so helpful because a child knows how to convey anger or how to convey affection through his tone. And his personality starts enhancing. And this helps the child in expressive activities of school. For example, elocution competition, debate competition, and later on when the written expression comes, this storytelling or listening to stories helps the child to develop beautiful essays which are original, because that imagination has been triggered in early years. The vocabulary is large, the expressions are there, and now what the child has to do, he has to put all these things together and express through writing. So storytelling is very important and you have to tell many stories to children.